Something is fundamentally broken in America. And if you're watching this right now, you probably already feel it. You're not imagining things. The middle class, the backbone of this country, is being squeezed like never before. And I'm not talking about luxuries or vacations or eating out at nice restaurants. I'm talking about basic necessities: food, housing, healthcare, the things that human beings need to survive. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we talk about the real issues affecting everyday Americans, the stuff that mainstream media glosses over or ignores completely. And today we need to have an honest conversation about what's happening to the middle class in this country, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just statistics or theory. This is happening right now to real people in every corner of America. Before we dive in, if this content resonates with you, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're a community here trying to make sense of what's really going on, and your support helps us keep creating content that matters. Let me start with a question. When was the last time you went grocery shopping and didn't feel a pit in your stomach when you saw the total? For millions of Americans, grocery shopping has become an anxiety-inducing experience. And it's not because people are suddenly irresponsible with money. It's because everything has changed. A recent survey found that 65% of Americans are now living paycheck to paycheck. But here's what's shocking: that includes people making six figures. We're not just talking about minimum wage workers anymore. We're talking about nurses, teachers, engineers, small business owners, people who did everything right, people who went to college, got good jobs, worked hard, saved money. And yet they're struggling to afford the basics. I saw a post online that really stuck with me. A woman wrote, "I make $75,000 a year. I don't have kids. I don't have debt. I live alone in a one-bedroom apartment, and I'm one unexpected car repair away from financial disaster." Think about that. $75,000 a year used to mean you were solidly middle class, comfortable. Now, it means you're one emergency away from crisis. And the worst part is, people are embarrassed to talk about it. They feel like they're failing, like they're not working hard enough or managing their money properly. But this isn't about individual failure. This is about a system that has fundamentally changed, where wages have stagnated while the cost of everything else has exploded. Let me give you some numbers that should terrify every single person in this country. The cost of housing has increased by over 30% in just the last 3 years. Food prices are up 25%. Insurance, car insurance, home insurance, health insurance, all up by double digits. Energy costs up, childcare costs up, but wages have barely budged. And even when they do go up, they're not keeping pace with inflation. Not even close. So what does this actually mean for real people? It means families are making impossible choices every single day. Do I pay the electric bill or buy groceries? Do I fill up my gas tank or pick up my prescription medication? These aren't choices people should have to make in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But here we are. Let's talk about housing, because this is where the squeeze is hitting hardest. The American dream used to include home ownership. You worked hard, saved up for a down payment, bought a house, built equity, maybe passed something on to your kids. That was the deal. That was the promise. That promise is dead for millions of Americans. The median home price in the United States is now over $400,000. Let that sink in. And in many cities, places where jobs actually exist, you're looking at $600,000, $700,000, even $1 million or more for a basic family home. Not a mansion, not a luxury property, just a regular 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood. To afford a median-priced home, you need to make around $110,000 a year. But the median household income in America is only about $75,000. Do you see the problem? The math doesn't work anymore. It's literally impossible for the average American family to afford the average American home. So what are people doing? They're staying in rentals, but rents have skyrocketed too. In most major cities, you're looking at $2,000, $2,500, $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment. Financial experts say you should spend no more than 30% of your income on housing. But for millions of Americans, that number is 40%, 50%, sometimes even 60% or more. When you're spending that much on housing, there's nothing left for savings, for emergencies, for retirement, for building any kind of financial security. You're stuck in survival mode, month after month, year after year. And here's what really gets me. Landlords and property management companies know this. They know people are desperate. They know people have nowhere else to go, so they keep raising rents because they can, because the demand is there, because people need a place to live. I've read story after story of families getting notices that their rent is going up by $300, $400, $500 a month, and when they can't afford it, they're forced to move. But move where? Everywhere is expensive. Everywhere is unaffordable. Some people are moving back in with parents. Multi-generational households are becoming common again out of necessity, not choice. Others are moving to smaller apartments, cramming entire families into 1 or 2 bedrooms. And some, more than we want to admit, are ending up in their cars or in shelters because there's simply nowhere affordable to go. This isn't normal. This isn't how a functioning society operates. And yet we're being told that this is just _quote _1 that this is just supply and demand, as if human beings needing shelter is the same as buying a luxury watch. Now let's talk about something everyone can relate to: food. You would think that in a country as productive and wealthy as America, food would be affordable. You would be wrong. People are genuinely shocked at grocery store prices right now. I'm talking about staples: eggs, milk, bread, chicken, vegetables, the basic building blocks of meals. Items that used to cost $1 or $2 now cost $4, $5, $6. A gallon of milk that was $2.50 3 years ago is now $4.50 or more in many places. Eggs, which used to be one of the cheapest protein sources, hit $7 or $8 a dozen in some areas. And it's not like wages went up to match. So what's happening? Families are changing their eating habits not because they want to, but because they have to. They're buying less meat, less fresh produce, and more processed foods because they're cheaper and more filling. They're skipping meals. Parents are going hungry so their kids can eat. I saw a TikTok that went viral recently. A woman broke down crying in the grocery store because her usual shopping trip that used to cost $150 came to almost $300. She had to put items back. And she wasn't buying anything fancy, just normal groceries for her family. The comments were full of people saying quote 2 and quote 3 and quote 4. You're not the only one. Millions of people are experiencing this exact same thing, and here's what's insidious about it. It happens gradually. Prices go up by 50 cents here, $1 there. You notice, but you adjust. You tell yourself it's temporary, but it keeps happening. And suddenly, you realize your grocery budget has doubled, and you're buying half as much food. Some families have resorted to food banks, people with jobs, people who never thought they'd need assistance. Food bank usage is at record highs. And these are working families, people with incomes. But their incomes just don't stretch far enough anymore. The other thing people are doing is extreme couponing, buying only sale items, shopping at multiple stores to find the best prices, all of which takes time that people don't really have because they're working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. It's exhausting. It's demoralizing. And it shouldn't be this way. Let's talk about healthcare because this is where things get truly dystopian. Americans pay more for healthcare than any other developed nation. And yet we have worse outcomes. We're paying premium prices for mediocre results. How does that make sense? Health insurance premiums have been rising steadily for years, but recently it's gotten out of control. For a family plan through an employer, you're looking at $1,500 to $2,000 a month or more. And that's with the employer paying part of it. If you're self-employed or buying on the marketplace, you could be paying $2,500, $3,000 a month or higher for coverage. But here's the kicker. Even with insurance, you're not actually covered. You have deductibles of $5,000, $10,000, sometimes $15,000 before insurance even starts paying. You have co-pays. You have co-insurance. You have things that aren't covered at all. So you're paying thousands of dollars a month for insurance. And then when you actually need care, you're still paying thousands out of pocket. People are rationing medication. Diabetics are using less insulin than prescribed because they can't afford it. People with chronic conditions are skipping doctor visits. Families are avoiding the emergency room even when they probably should go, because they know it'll cost thousands of dollars they don't have. There are GoFundMe campaigns for medical bills. People are going bankrupt because they had a medical emergency. Cancer patients are weighing whether to continue treatment or save money for their families. This is barbaric. This is inhumane. And it's uniquely American. Other countries have figured this out. They provide health care to their citizens without bankrupting them. But here in America, we've decided that health care is a commodity, not a right, and the middle class is paying the price literally. I talked to a woman recently who broke her arm. Simple fracture, needed a cast and some follow-up visits. She has insurance. Her bill, over $12,000 after insurance, for a broken arm. She's on a payment plan that'll take her 3 years to pay off. 3 years of debt because she fell and broke her arm. This is the system we're living under, and people are terrified. They're terrified of getting sick, of getting injured, of needing care, because they know it could financially ruin them. When people can't afford the basics with their income, they turn to debt. Credit cards, personal loans, buy now, pay later schemes, payday loans, and once you're in debt, it's incredibly hard to get out. Credit card debt in America has reached record levels over $1 trillion. The average household with credit card debt owes around $17,000. And with interest rates on credit cards now at 20%, 25%, even 30%, that debt grows fast. You can make your minimum payments every month and barely make a dent in the principal. People aren't using credit cards to buy luxuries. They're using them to buy groceries, to pay utilities, to cover unexpected car repairs. They're using debt to survive. And the credit card companies know this. They're making record profits while Americans drown. Student loan debt is another massive burden. People went to college because they were told it was the path to a good life, to a good job, to financial security. Many of them now have degrees and jobs, but are still struggling because their student loan payments are $500, $800, $1,000 a month. That's a huge chunk of income that can't go toward housing, food, savings, or anything else. And car loans don't even get me started. The average car payment in America is now over $700 a month. People need cars to get to work, especially in areas with limited public transit. But they're paying as much for their car as they used to pay for rent. When you add it all up, housing, food, healthcare, debt payments, there's nothing left. The middle class is being bled dry by 1,000 cuts. And the stress, the anxiety, the constant worry about money is taking a psychological toll. People are anxious, depressed, burned out. They're not sleeping well. They're fighting with their partners about money. They're feeling hopeless about the future. And they're wondering how much longer they can keep this up. So why is this happening? How did we get here? The simple answer is that the system is rigged. Wealth has been flowing upward for decades. Corporate profits are at record highs. CEO pay has skyrocketed. The stock market keeps reaching new peaks, but wages for average workers have barely moved. The wealth gap is wider than it's been in generations. Companies have more power than ever. They can raise prices because they face little competition. They can keep wages low because workers have limited options. They can lobby politicians to write laws in their favor. And they do. Meanwhile, the cost of housing keeps rising because investment firms are buying up properties, treating housing as a financial asset rather than a basic need. Corporations own entire neighborhoods of rental properties and collude to keep rents high. Healthcare costs keep rising because insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, and hospital systems are all maximizing profits with little regulation. They charge whatever they can get away with because people don't have a choice. You can't shop around when you're having a heart attack. Food prices are rising because of consolidation in the food industry. A handful of massive corporations control most of the food supply, and they've been accused of price gouging and collusion. Everything is financialized. Everything is about extracting maximum profit. And the middle class is the resource being extracted. Politicians talk about the middle class constantly, especially during election season. They promise relief, reform, change. But once elected, very little actually happens, because the wealthy and corporations donate to campaigns, lobby lawmakers, and write legislation. The system serves them, not us. And the media, mainstream media especially, downplays what's happening. They talk about unemployment numbers and stock market gains and GDP growth as if those things represent how regular people are doing. They don't. You can have low unemployment and a booming stock market while the middle class is drowning. Those metrics don't capture the lived reality of most Americans. So what are people doing to cope? They're getting creative. They're hustling. They're sacrificing. Side hustles have become almost mandatory. People work their main job and then drive for Uber, deliver food, sell things online, do freelance work, anything to bring in extra money. The gig economy sounds modern and flexible, but for most people it's just survival. Families are cutting back on everything. No vacations, no eating out, no new clothes unless absolutely necessary. They're canceling subscriptions, switching to cheaper phone plans, turning down the heat to save on utilities. They're making their own coffee, packing lunches, buying generic brands. Some are moving to lower-cost areas, leaving cities and high-cost states for places where the dollar stretches further. But even those cheaper places are getting expensive as more people move there. Others are living in RVs, vans, or trailers, not because they want to live that lifestyle, but because it's the only housing they can afford. There's an entire community of people living this way, working full-time jobs while living in parking lots and campgrounds. Multi-generational living is making a comeback. Adult children are moving back with parents, or parents are moving in with adult children. It's not ideal and it comes with challenges, but it's a way to pool resources and reduce costs. And some people are just giving up on the traditional markers of middle-class life. They're not trying to buy homes anymore. They're not planning for retirement because there's nothing to save. They're not having kids because they can't afford them. They're just trying to survive day to day. There's a quiet desperation spreading across America, and it's not being talked about enough. People feel trapped, stuck, powerless. They work hard. They follow the rules. They do everything they're supposed to do. And it's still not enough. Here's what really concerns me. This isn't sustainable. You cannot have a functioning society where the middle class is constantly struggling to afford basics. The middle class is the foundation of social stability. When that foundation crumbles, everything becomes unstable. We're already seeing the effects. Birth rates are declining because people can't afford children. Home ownership rates among young people are plummeting. Retirement savings are non-existent for millions. People are delaying medical care, leading to worse health outcomes. Mental health issues are surging. And there's anger. People are angry at a system that seems designed to keep them down, to extract wealth from them, to leave them with nothing. That anger is justified. But it's also dangerous if it's not channeled constructively. Some people are checking out entirely. They're quiet quitting, doing the bare minimum at work, because they've realized that working harder doesn't actually improve their situation. They're rejecting the narrative that if they just work harder, everything will be fine. Others are getting politically active, demanding change, supporting policies like higher minimum wages, affordable housing initiatives, universal health care. But progress is slow and people are hurting now. The truth is, we're at a crossroads. Either we make significant changes to address affordability, wages, and wealth inequality, or we accept that the middle class as we've known it is over. And if the middle class disappears, what replaces it? A society of haves and have-nots with no buffer in between. That's not a recipe for prosperity. It's a recipe for social upheaval. If you're struggling right now, if you're feeling like you can't keep up, if you're wondering how you're going to make it through the next month, you're not alone. Millions of Americans are in the exact same boat, and it's not your fault. You didn't cause inflation. You didn't cause housing prices to skyrocket. You didn't cause healthcare to become unaffordable. Those are systemic problems that require systemic solutions. What you can do is take care of yourself and your family the best you can. Make the tough decisions you need to make. Cut costs where you can. Find community, because we're stronger together than we are alone. Share resources, share information, support each other. And speak up. Talk about what you're experiencing. Don't be ashamed. Don't suffer in silence. The more people talk about this, the harder it is to ignore. This channel exists to shine a light on these issues, to have real conversations about what's happening in America. If you found value in this video, please consider subscribing and sharing it with others who need to hear this message. The middle class built this country. We deserve better than this. And one way or another, things are going to change. The question is whether that change comes from policy and reform, or from the collapse of a system that's no longer working for the people it's supposed to serve. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.